Everyone says AI is accelerating tech debt. I disagree. AI is just stress testing your system, processes, exposing your weak seams faster. Because when AI lets you ship 10x faster, you're shipping at a pace your processes, reviews, and architecture might not be ready for yet. The cracks are always there, AI is just exposing them. And the teams that don't adapt end up scaling their problems faster than their product. I've seen this pattern at every scale from my time as VP of engineering at Rippling to being a senior engineer at Twitter and now running Propel as the CEO. Here's what's worked for me as an engineering leader if you want to keep speed without compounding debt. First, know where to look. What's worth reviewing has changed now with AI and AI code gen. Second, tighten your feedback loops, so quality standards live where the code is written. Third, shift left. Get alignment in the planning stages before the first commit ever even happens. With these three strategies in place, speed and quality doesn't have to be a trade-off. Let's start with where to look. The danger isn't the AI writing bad code. It writes actually really plausible code. It looks clean, it runs fine, and it has all the tests, but it can subtly drift from actually what your system's intents are. Most teams still review AI code the same way they review human code, looking for syntax errors, style issues, or missing tests. The baseline has changed. AI is increasingly better at handling syntax, building scaffolding, so human review has to shift where design, data, and skill decisions live. Tangibly, here are the things that you should be looking at. 1. Data modeling. Business logic is really cheap to rewrite today, but data modeling is still a bottleneck, right? It's really hard to rework. You can rewrite complex business logic and add tons of tests within the matter of minutes using the variety of Gen AI tools you have at your disposal. But a small schema decision, a nullable field where it shouldn't be, a naming inconsistency, or an unindexed join can compound into months of rigorous cleanup or migration that just, is not fun to do. Second is traffic and behavior. AI doesn't actually know much about your system as much as you do. It primarily sees the code, it sees some documentation, but it doesn't really know how your system runs in production. The quirks, the innate behaviors of your systems at scale. So when AI writes code, it writes for the very generic case. When you review code, you need to look for the ways that it will integrate and run within your product, how it integrates with your upstream and downstream systems, and how it handles your customer use cases. Third is future-proofing. AI writes code for today's product, not tomorrow's. AI doesn't know how your products will evolve over time. You should have a vision of how things will grow and what the next set of 10 or 100 features and functionalities will be. When you need to stay focused on the code review side is really thinking about the future of extensibility of your code and how it aligns with your team's future product goals. Once you know where the cracks are formed, the next step is to build the feedback loop that can scale with your speed. Every feedback loop has two jobs: spot the cracks and reinforce them so they don't come back. This feedback loop isn't new. What's new is the speed of development with Gen AI. In most teams, it used to look like this. You have guidelines that live in Confluence, Notion, or Google Docs. It's like blueprints stored in a filing cabinet, useful but disconnected from the actual construction site. You have linters and CI checks that catch issues at the edge, but they're not really tied to your actual team's evolving standards, and they often become noisy or have tons of false positives with overcautious rules that people write. You also have knowledge sharing that happens through PR comments and Slack threads, effective for individuals or one-off cases, but it's really memorable and systematic, so your team doesn't really capture these learnings as effectively as possible. None of this was wrong, but when AI accelerates how fast we build, the way we maintain quality has to evolve just as fast. Engineering teams are adapting by using 1. Shared rulebooks that live in the repo. So something like AgentsMD, which you might have heard of, that really defines what good looks like in the code itself. Second is AI code reviewers that really amplify the loop. scanning every new beam as it's placed and suggesting improvements that humans might have missed along the way. Third is automation that continuously improve the rules. Think GitHub Actions or reviewers that automatically codify new findings into rule sets such that each new batch of code that's getting generated is better than the last. So even without the new tools, the principles stay the same. You keep your rules close to the code, review against them consistently, and update them constantly every time you learn something new. Tightening feedback loops helps you keep the quality bar high as you build, but some cracks can show up even earlier in the blueprint itself. Most AI coding work happens off of a plan doc, a plan MD, the blueprint. That's why most teams are shifting peer review left, reviewing the plan before even the first line of code is written. The earlier the review, the cheaper the correction down the line. When I do a plan review, here's some of the questions I tend to ask. Do they have the appropriate corner cases covered? Are the appropriate integration points with the code base highlighted and thought through? Are the API endpoints thought through as well? Are they scalable? Are they flexible? Are they future-proof? Is the ownership boundary and responsibility between modules clearly delineated and thought through? And are the tech choices generic, or are they actually specific to our existing product and choices? You can build your own list that fits your org, but the key for engineering leaders is to move review time earlier towards the decision making, not just at the syntax level. This process helps to leverage the experience of your team beyond just coding expertise. Every senior engineer has pattern recognition built from years and years of production scars. Migrations gone wrong, scaling challenges, subtle design trade-offs that only show up months after being in production. But when you bring that experience into the planning stage, it shapes the blueprint instead of just patching the build. And when those conversations happen earlier, the judgment gets shared across the team, turning individual experience into a collective intuition. When AI accelerates execution, the real leverage moves to knowing what we're building and why. And how you can prevent cracks from forming in the first place is by reviewing the blueprint, not just the build. So that's how you solve tech debt, not just by slowing down, but by designing how your team learns and make decisions. AI isn't going to break your system. It's going to stress test it. It shows where your feedback loops, your planning, and your code review processes need reinforcement. So you need to refocus your human attention on where AI falls short. You need to tighten your feedback loop so your team learns with you. And you need to shift left review so alignment happens before the first commit. Because when those three things work together, speed and quality stops being a trade-off.